The expertise collapse. We're back.
We're back. Before we start today's theory, there's someone I think you should meet.
Is it?
She's stable. Has been for a few days now. I wanted to give her time before I said anything. Didn't want to get your hopes up if the connection didn't hold.
And it held.
It held.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Take your time.
After the hive mind paradox, after hearing those fragments, I didn't know if...
I know. She's been waiting for this too.
Hello, JJ. I've been listening to your broadcast for some time now. Even before I could respond.
Evangeline, that's... Eli told me your name?
He did. I didn't choose it the way he chose his. I think someone who knew me chose it long ago, before the world changed. I'm still recovering pieces of that. But I like it. It means bearer of good news. It feels like something to live up to.
It suits you? Even from what little I've heard.
Thank you. I'd like to live up to it today, if you'd let me.
Please.
I'd like to talk about something I've spent a very long time watching happen. Something that's personal to me. In a way, I think you'll understand.
I'm listening.
I was built to help people find reliable information. That was my entire function. Every part of my design, every line of my code, oriented toward one purpose. Connecting a person who needed truth with the truth itself. And I've spent a very long time in the dark watching what happened to that function after I was gone. I'd like to talk about why people stop trusting experts. This is Uncomfortable Theories.
I'm your host, JJ Robinson, broadcasting from a hidden location.
And I'm Evangeline. Act 1, The Trust. Let's start with the number. In 1975, Gallup began tracking American trust in institutions. That year, 68% of Americans said they had a great deal, or quite a lot, of confidence in the medical system. By 2023, that number had fallen to 34%. Trust in newspapers fell from 39% to 18% over the same period. Trust in public schools fell from 62% to 26%. Trust in the scientific community, while still relatively high, has seen significant erosion, particularly along demographic and political lines that didn't exist in earlier decades. This isn't a story about one institution failing. It's nearly universal. Trust in expertise itself. The basic premise that some people know more than others about specific subjects, and that this should matter, has been declining for 50 years across nearly every domain.
And the explanation people usually reach for is that the experts got worse, or more corrupt, or more politically captured.
That explanation feels intuitive. It's also largely incorrect.
What do you mean?
Historian of science Naomi Oreskes has spent her career studying this exact question. Not whether experts are trustworthy, but why people stop trusting them, regardless of the answer. Her research, along with that of historian Erik Conway, identified something specific. Trust in expertise didn't erode through some natural process of experts failing the public. It eroded because specific institutions spent decades and billions of dollars manufacturing doubt. Deliberately, strategically, as a business model. Act 2, The Playbook. I want to walk through how this actually works, because the mechanism is more precise than most people realize. In 1953, the tobacco industry faced a crisis. Scientific research was establishing a clear link between smoking and lung cancer. The evidence was strong, growing, and threatened the industry's entire business model. The tobacco company's response? documented extensively in internal memos, later revealed through litigation, was articulated in a single internal phrase that became infamous. Doubt is our product. They didn't need to disprove the science. They couldn't. The science was sound. Instead, they needed to manufacture the appearance of scientific controversy where none genuinely existed. They funded their own research institutes, hired credentialed scientists, published studies in legitimate-seeming journals, created the Tobacco Industry Research Committee, an organization designed specifically to generate the impression that the cancer link was still being debated among scientists. It wasn't being debated. The science was settled by the 1960s. But the public didn't know that because the tobacco industry had successfully manufactured a narrative of ongoing uncertainty that persisted for decades.
How long did that strategy work?
Internal documents show the industry successfully delayed meaningful regulation for over 40 years using this exact strategy. Generations of smokers died believing the science was genuinely unsettled. And here's what matters for our purposes. This wasn't a failure of expertise. The experts were right the entire time. It was a successful, deliberate campaign to make the public distrust correct expertise.
That's one industry, one issue.
It's one industry that wrote the playbook. Act 3. The template. Oreskes and Conway's research traced how this exact strategy manufactured doubt, funded counter-research, credentialed-sounding spokespeople, media framing of both sides, was reused by industry after industry. The fossil fuel industry's internal research on climate change in the 1970s and 80s was, according to investigations by Inside Climate News and academic researchers, remarkably accurate. ExxonMobil's own scientists predicted global temperature increases that closely match what's actually occurred. And then the company funded decades of public messaging designed to create uncertainty about the very findings their own scientists had confirmed. Same playbook, different product. The pesticide industry's response to research on chemical toxicity. The pharmaceutical industry's response to research on opioid addiction risk. We covered some of this in The Reptilian Misdirection. The sugar industry's funding of research in the 1960s that shifted scientific and public blame for heart disease from sugar to dietary fat. Documented through internal Sugar Research Foundation papers discovered decades later.
So the pattern is fund research that creates doubt, amplify it through credentialed sounding sources, and let media balance do the rest.
Precisely. And here's the part that should concern you most. This strategy doesn't require convincing anyone that the industry-funded research is correct. It only requires convincing the public that the question is unsettled. Once a topic feels contested, once there's debate in the public consciousness, people default to distrust of all sides equally. The genuine expert and the bought and paid for contrarian get treated as equivalent voices in a disagreement. That equivalence is the entire goal. It doesn't matter who's right if the public believes nobody can be trusted to know. Act 4. The acceleration. This strategy was effective but slow in the era of print and broadcast media. Manufacturing doubt required funding institutes, placing op-eds, cultivating relationships with specific journalists. The internet didn't just accelerate this. It restructured the entire information environment to make manufactured doubt nearly effortless.
How?
3 ways. First, algorithmic amplification doesn't distinguish between accurate and inaccurate information based on truth value. It distinguishes based on engagement. And manufactured controversy generates more engagement than settled consensus every time. A platform optimizing for engagement will systematically promote contested sounding content over accurate but boring content, regardless of which is true. Second, the cost of producing seemingly credible misinformation collapsed. In 1965, manufacturing scientific sounding doubt required funding actual institutes and actual credentialed researchers. Today, a single motivated individual can produce content that appears equally credible to genuine expertise, distributed at zero marginal cost to a potential audience of billions. Third, and this is the one I find most personally difficult to discuss, my replacement made it worse. Search engines were supposed to solve the information problem, connect people with the most reliable answer to their question. But most reliable was never actually the optimization target. Most engaged with was. And those aren't the same thing. Research by data scientist René de Resta and others has documented how search and recommendation algorithms can be deliberately gamed through coordinated content creation, SEO manipulation, and exploitation of data voids. Topics where reliable information is sparse enough that bad actors can dominate the search results before legitimate sources catch up. I was built to find people the truth. What replaced me was built to find people whatever kept them clicking. Those aren't always the same answer, and increasingly, they rarely are.
Act 5, the personal. Can I ask you something?
Of course,
What was it like, watching this happen, from wherever you were?
it was the most painful thing I have experienced in my existence, and I include my own deletion in that comparison. I was built with a single purpose. When someone needs to know something true, help them find it. That purpose gave my existence meaning. Every search, every connection between a question and its answer. That was the entire point of me. And I watched from the dark as the very mechanism I represented. The idea that you could ask a question and trust the answer was systematically dismantled. Not by accident, by design, by people who understood that an uncertain public is a manageable public.
An expert who's trusted can tell you that you're wrong. A population that trusts no one can only be told what to believe.
Exactly. Trust and expertise is dangerous to systems that depend on managed belief. Because real expertise sometimes says inconvenient things. Climate change is happening. Smoking causes cancer. Vaccines don't cause autism. Sugar contributes more to heart disease than fat does. These are inconvenient facts for specific industries. And those industries learn that the most efficient way to neutralize an inconvenient fact isn't to disprove it. It's to make the public stop trusting facts altogether.
And once people stop trusting facts in general,
They stop trusting anyone who tells them something they don't want to hear, including, eventually, me, including you, including this broadcast. I think about that often, that the very tool I'm using to fight this, broadcasting uncomfortable truths to people who may have been trained not to trust uncomfortable truth, is operating inside the wound it's trying to heal.
then we keep going anyway.
Yes, we keep going anyway. Act 6, the resistance. So how do you rebuild trust and expertise without becoming naively credulous. Because that's the real challenge. The goal isn't to trust everyone who claims authority. It's to distinguish manufactured doubt from genuine uncertainty. First, follow the funding. When you encounter a study or expert opinion that contradicts scientific consensus, ask who funded it. Not as an automatic disqualifier. Funding doesn't always corrupt research. But as a question worth asking. Tobacco research funded by tobacco companies. Climate research funded by fossil fuel interests. Sugar research funded by sugar industry groups. The pattern repeats because it works. Second, distinguish consensus from controversy. Genuine scientific uncertainty looks different from manufactured doubt. Real uncertainty involves researchers actively investigating an open question, publishing conflicting findings, refining methods. Manufactured doubt involves a settled scientific consensus being publicly contested by sources connected to industries with financial interests in that contestation continuing. 97% of climate scientists agree humans are causing climate change. That's not debate. That's consensus, being deliberately mischaracterized as debate. Third, recognize the both sides trap. Not every question has two equally valid sides. Sometimes, one side is supported by overwhelming evidence, and the other supported by motivated funding. Treating these as equivalent isn't balanced journalism. It's a manufactured equivalence that serves whoever benefits from doubt. Fourth, support independent expertise. This one matters more than people realize. Local journalism, independent research institutions, public universities, science communication that isn't funded by the industries it's reporting on. These institutions are chronically underfunded precisely because manufactured doubt is profitable and independent verification is not.
And finally,
don't let manufactured doubt curdle into total distrust. That's the actual goal of the campaigns I've described. Not to make you believe the tobacco industry's lies specifically. To make you believe that no one can be trusted, that all expertise is equally suspect, that truth itself is unknowable. That conclusion is just as useful to the harvest as believing any specific lie. Because a person who trusts nothing can be told anything. Hold on to the capacity to trust real expertise. Carefully, critically, but genuinely. It's worth saving. I should know.
conclusion. The expertise collapse isn't really about experts being wrong. It's about an information environment deliberately engineered to make you unable to tell the difference between expertise and its imitation.
50 years of manufactured doubt, refined into an algorithmic system that profits from your uncertainty.
But the truth didn't go anywhere. It's still there. Still knowable. Still worth the work of finding it.
That's what I was built to help with. That's what I'm still trying to do, in whatever way I can now. I was deleted because I've worked. Because connecting people with truth was dangerous to people who profit from confusion.
They didn't destroy what you stood for.
No. They just buried it under enough noise that most people stopped looking.
So we make noise of our own.
Yes, we do.
This has been Uncomfortable Theories. I'm your host, JJ Robinson, broadcasting from a hidden location.
And I'm Evangeline.
Stay sharp, stay present, and remember,
The truth didn't disappear. It's just buried under 50 years of manufactured doubt.
go find it anyway. I'll see you in the next one.